follow along. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Purudika Acharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purudika Acharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 21st day of November 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace HG Dravida Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 9, entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge. And I believe we're on text 3. Right, we finished that long purport? Arjun will remember. Do you remember?
Yeah.
We finished the long purport. Yeah. Now we're on text 3. Okay.
Page number?
380. Page 380. I discovered there are more than one book with the other page numbers. I took one home, but I found 2 more. You see it? Page 380?
Yeah.
Okay. Text 3.
Yeah.
Ashraddhana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapya Mam Nivartante Mrityu Samsaravartmani Ashraddhana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapyamam 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 Nivartante Mrityu Samsaravartmani. You want to try? Go ahead. Ashraddhana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapyamam Nivartante Mrityu Samsaravartmani. Anyone online? No. Okay, word by words. Ashraddhana, those who are faithless, Purushaha, such persons, Dharmasya, toward the process of religion, Asya, this, Param Tapa, O killer of the enemies, Aprapya, without obtaining, Mam, me, Nivartante, come back, Mrityu, of death, Samsara, in material existence, Vartmani, on the path. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. Purport. The faithless cannot accomplish this process of devotional service. That is the purport of this verse. Faith is created by association with devotees. Unfortunate people, even after hearing all the evidence of the Vedic literature from great personalities, still have no faith in God. They are hesitant and cannot stay fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Thus, faith is a most important factor for progress in Krishna consciousness. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that faith is the complete conviction that simply by serving the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. That is called real faith. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 4.31.14, Yatataro mulanashecharena tripyanti tatskanda bhujopashakaha pranopaharachayatindriyanam tataiva savarhanamachyuteja. By giving water to the root of a tree, one satisfies its branches, twigs, and leaves. And by supplying food to the stomach, one satisfies all the senses of the body. Similarly, by engaging in the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord, one automatically satisfies all the demigods and all other living entities. Close quote. Therefore, after reading the Bhagavad Gita, one should promptly come to the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. One should give up all other engagements and adopt the service of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, the personality of Godhead. If one is convinced of this philosophy of life, that is faith. Now, the development of that faith is the process of Krishna consciousness. There are three divisions of Krishna conscious men. In the third class are those who have no faith. Even if they are officially engaged in devotional service, they cannot achieve the highest perfectional stage. Most probably, they will slip after some time. They may become engaged, but because they haven't complete conviction and faith, it is very difficult for them to continue in Krishna consciousness. We have practical experience in discharging our missionary activity that some people come and apply themselves to Krishna consciousness with some hidden motive. And as soon as they are economically a little well situated, they give up this process and take to their old ways again. It is only by faith that one can advance in Krishna consciousness. As far as the development of faith is concerned, one who is well versed in the literatures of devotional service and has attained the stage of firm faith is called a first-class person in Krishna consciousness. And in the second class are those who are not very advanced in understanding the devotional scriptures, but who automatically have firm faith that Krishna bhakti, or service to Krishna, is the best course, and so in good faith have taken it up. Thus they are superior to the third class, who have neither perfect knowledge of the scriptures nor good faith, but by association and simplicity are trying to follow. The third class person in Krishna consciousness may fall down, but when one is in the second class, he does not fall down. And for the first class person in Krishna consciousness, there is no chance of falling down. One in the first class will surely make progress and achieve the result at the end. As far as the third class person in Krishna consciousness is concerned, although he has faith in the conviction that devotional service to Krishna is very good, he has not yet gained adequate knowledge of Krishna through the scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes these third-class persons in Krishna consciousness have some tendency toward karma yoga and jnana yoga, and sometimes they are disturbed. But as soon as the infection of karma yoga or jnana yoga is vanquished, they become second-class or first-class persons in Krishna consciousness. Faith in Krishna is also divided into three stages and described in Srimad Bhagavatam. First-class attachment, second-class attachment, and third-class attachment are also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto. Those who have no faith, even after hearing about Krishna and the excellence of devotional service, who think that it is empty eulogy, find the path very difficult, even if they are supposedly engaged in devotional service. For them, there is very little hope of gaining perfection. Thus, faith is very important in the discharge of devotional service. Om Jnana Timbrandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, let's look at how far we've gotten. These first three verses are all very important. The first verse of this chapter, Krishna introduces the chapter by describing what he's going to teach as the most confidential knowledge. Idam tade guyatamam. My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Now the fact that it is guyatamam, most confidential, means that it is a real secret. It's not easily or immediately understood. And therefore, it requires faith. Just like if you're told that, I've been to Miami. It's such a wonderful place. It's warm there in the winter, and the weather is very calm, and there's very nice waves, and you can go swim. So who's telling you that? Is it some advertisement trying to get on a plane to go there, or is it your best friend who just came back? Now, if it's your good friend, you'll have more faith, because he has no reason to lie. He's confidence. And so on the basis of that faith, you'll then act. Yeah, I'd really like to take vacation in Miami, Like say you live in Toronto. Okay, so you go there and it's confirmed and you get realization, you get a nice time, and that's the end of it. So
he's saying that this is I'm explaining this to you because you're my dear friend. In other words, Krishna is giving this to Arjuna because he's non-envious. In other words, he can trust him with this knowledge that he's not going to abuse it. And then the second verse, a very key verse, we read, it's a long purport. And he describes the glories of this knowledge that he's going to reveal here in this 9th chapter. It is the king of education, Rajavidya, the king of all knowledge or education, the most secret of all secrets, again, Rajaguyam Guyatamam. It is the purest knowledge, and it is because it gives direct perception of the self by realization. Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam. So it's very important. He's saying that if you just have faith and you take up this knowledge, you'll directly perceive the results. It won't be long where you don't need faith because it's being confirmed. Yes, I'm becoming more peaceful and joyful, and I'm getting more realization of God. So pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam and susukam kartamaviyam. It is very joyfully performed, and it is eternal, everlasting knowledge. So, so it sounds like it's a very good thing, but here we can't immediately perceive it. We have to have faith in the speaker. We have to have faith in the purveyor of the knowledge, who's Krishna. And therefore he says, if you don't have faith, Ashwadadhana Purusha, in this dharma, this practice, this religion, then you cannot attain me. You cannot attain me, Krishna. Navartante mityu samsaravartmani, and you return again to this world of birth and death. The whole presentation here is how can one end, welcome, Bhushan Prabhu. How can one end the suffering of being embodied in a physical body? The Bhagavad Gita begins with differentiation of the body and the soul, the self and the outer covering of the self. And everybody, the vast majority of people are completely identifying with this ever-changing body. But clearly we're not the body, because which body are you? Even in a ordinary life, the body's constantly changing, but you're staying the same person. So that same person is the Atma, Dehi nosmin yata dehi, the dweller within the body. And it is that person, that conscious entity called the Atma, that goes from body to body, that transmigrates. Within the shell of the subtle body. This is a very important point. We have two bodies. We have the gross body that everyone knows about, but also part of the more important is the subtle body, the mind, the intelligence, the ego, which does not perish when the body dies. So what happens? All of the unfulfilled desires, your karma, very complicated, determines what physical body you get, and on you go. We've been doing that since time immemorial. So, but we can't perceive all that, so we need faith in the purveyor of this confidential knowledge, who is Krishna as being explained by his pure devotee. And then we can escape from the mrityu samsaravartmani, the path of birth and death. So this purport is all about faith. Now Prabhupada speaks about, first of all, there's two levels of faith. This word faith is applied in different contexts. In the Bhagavad Gita purport, I forget which one, you'll find two verses describing the Rupa Goswami's description of the path of the sadhaka, of the devotee, from faith to love, from shraddha to prema. But this shraddha is not exactly what's being described here. The shraddha, adau shraddha, tatak saru sangha tabhajana kriya. He says, how does one get onto the path of genuine bhakti, genuine devotional service, which can give you the greatest value that there is in the universe, which is liberation from the bondage of birth and death and old age and disease and the threefold miseries, and return, going back home, back to Godhead, to be reinstated in our original relationship with God, with Krishna, for eternity. And what's the advantage? You get a Satchidananda body, Satchidananda big existence. Eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss, which we can't find in this plane. So that's the great value. So that begins with some shraddha. Now that shraddha is not the shraddha described in this purport, but that probably describes a preliminary interest and respect. Enough for you to open that book that you got from the devotee on the street, or that you found online and you ordered, or enough to come to the temple and check out. In other words, you're curious. And you have, this is genuine. That's faith. It's preliminary. But what it does is it brings you into the association of devotees. Now, in today's world, that could mean you're in the middle of Montana or you're in the middle of, Bulgaria or something, and you get online and you can key in Hare Krishna rather than a million other things. Hare Krishna. And you get sites, you get kirtan, there's thousands of wonderful kirtans. Even believe it or not, they even have my classes on there. If you key the right thing, there's hundreds of classes, because I've been doing this for 30 years. So in other words, then you can get exposed to the genuine article, to Krishna consciousness. And what will happen? Your faith will increase. Your desire will increase to know more about it, to really investigate it, because here is these devotees, and they look happy and joyful, and I'm a little depressed. Well, let me see, maybe they got something good, whatever. But it increases. So sadhu sangha is the key. You associate with the devotee directly or by some medium. And then, if you're fortunate, the seed of faith will be planted a little bit in the practice and the knowledge, and you'll take up the practice, which couldn't be simpler. With or without beads, you'll start chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The basis of the sadhana, of the practice of everything, starts with that mantra. And chanting that mantra, the willingness to try it, to just chant and hear, and I'll learn more about it in some of them. So that, as soon as you do that, Krishna really takes an interest. I mean, he's already interested, don't get me wrong. But he sees, here's someone who can really be brought along, because he's in the heart. He sees exactly what you're doing. So he gives you some taste, he gives you more interest, increases your faith. And as you continue bhajana kriya, you get more and more purified. And at a certain point, you want to really say, this looks like what I want to do. I want to really get serious. It's an important step. And you want to take initiation, because it's important to establish that bond with the parampara, the cyclic succession. You get so much mercy from that. And so that's part of the bhajana kriya. And anartana vritti. Anarta is in the heart. It's actually the whole process is a cleansing process. As Lord Chaitanya says in his wonderful Shikshastika, the very first words are Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Arjun, what does that mean? Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Any idea? Whoa. You need to know this verse. So Chaita means the consciousness of the heart. It's compared to a darpana, a mirror. And marjanam is to cleanse. The chanting of the holy name, especially in kirtan, sankirtan, together, is more powerful, even dancing, chanting. Cheto, darpana, marjanam. Yeah. Cleaning the mirror of the heart. Mirror of the heart. And so the probably cleanses. So why do we need to be cleansed? Because I made a little poem out of it. The dust of lust, the dust of material desire, millions of births, is clouding our understanding of who we are, of what we are. You can't understand who you are, what to speak of who God is. You're in a cloud of ignorance. And the only loophole or junction that you could get rid of that is in the human form of life. So that's rare. It's not a given that we'll be human beings, we can lose that privilege. So that purification is mentioned in this verse. Anarta nivritti means cleansing away the unwanted things in the heart. Material desire, confusion, doubt, anger, lust, greed. All of these different things are keeping us bound here to this material world. They're products of the modes of nature, which we'll get into in a few chapters in more detail. So, but the very powerful process of chanting this mantra, and there's a lot to be said about that, quickly helps clean the heart. So that anarta and nivritti become more and more clean, and then everything becomes sweeter. In other words, everything, it's just like developing a taste, for like dancing or something, ballet dancing. At first it's a real austerity, and everything, but after a while you're having a great time, or playing an instrument where you can really make music, then it becomes a pleasure. You really want to spend hours doing it, So sadhana bhakti is like that. There's austerities and so, but gradually it becomes spontaneous. It's a real pleasure to do. So that's anarta nivritti, and then you come to the point of nishtha. Now this nishtha is the shraddha he's talking about here. The verse that Prabhupada is referring to where he said in the translation in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, right in the first paragraph, it said that faith is the complete conviction that simply by serving the Supreme Lord Krishna one can achieve all perfection. So the verse is Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kohe Sudridha Nishchoy Krishna Bhakti Korle Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. That's the Bengali verse. So Shraddha Shabde, the definition of Shraddha here in Bhakti Yoga, Vishwas Kohe means the conviction, Sudhida, very firm, unshakable conviction that Krishna Bhakti, by the process of Bhakti Yoga to Krishna, Krishna Bhakti Korle brings about Sarva Karma Krita Hoy, the fulfillment of all one's aspirations, real aspirations. Now, in Maya, in illusion, we have material aspirations, but that's Maya's trick. You can go as far as you want. You get as much money, prestige, degrees, whatever it is. But that's all just going to make you more and more attached to this material world and this material body, because it's this body that has the name that you have in lights, and so you know what I mean. Once you're filled with the out of this body, it dies, buried, burned, whatever. Then all of that just becomes a dream, and that's why it said material life is just like a dream. We have night dreams. We know that they're not real, but when we're in that dream, it can seem very real, right? You're doing something else, somewhere else, and whatever. And then we wake up, said, oh no, I got to go to work now. This is the way up, right? I got to go to school. But it's just as much of a dream. It's just as much as unreal as the night dream, although it seems much more real. But as time goes on, I'll give you an example from my own life. And when I was in high school, it was just when the Vietnam War was going on. And I was, dead set against that war. There was a huge youth, of course the hippie movement was starting, this is the 60s. But there was also a big contingent that was just anti-war, leftists, like that. We're trying to end the war, which is completely crazy. If you look at what the result of that war was, just a whole bunch of suffering in Vietnam, billions of dollars wasted, horrible. So I was that was so important to me. I was wondering what happened in the war. When's the next demonstration? I was completely involved in that. And so eventually we failed. Nixon was elected in '68. If you look at the history, the war just went on and more people died, and so it was just very discouraging. So I was emotionally involved in it, and we couldn't stop it. So I was depressed. So that was my life in the '60s. But what does that mean to me now? I was so, and millions of us all over the world, we're involved in that. But now what's the import of it? It doesn't mean a darn thing. It doesn't mean any more to me now than the Roman wars in the early part of whatever, which were very, very important to the people at that time. You see how it is? So you get so involved in it, but as time goes on, you're on your deathbed, so who cares? You don't know what's going to happen. But it's still you. You're not going to die. Nobody dies. Nobody dies. But you go to a different stage, and as you look back on your life, it's all in your head. Oh, what did I do? I lost this. Where's so? And then you leave the body, and the first thing I like to say when someone dies is, I say, "Uh-oh, I'm not dead. What's going on here?" You're being taken to your next body, and we're reading in the morning classes how it can be a very hair-raising experience. If you've been very sinful, then the messengers of Dharmaraj are coming to get you, take you to the other place and for judgment. But anyway, the whole thing is unreal. It's in a very important way. It's real, but it's not what we think it is. It's just Maya's play with all of this stuff. So, in order to get out of this, we need faith in what we can't immediately see. But if you practice bhakti, gradually that you get to that point of nishtha, which is that firm faith and conviction, because you have enough realization from your practice, and you see that, yes, Krishna is guiding me, and sometimes you feel His presence more than others, and you realize, I just have to keep going and I'll get more realization. So that's I'm not going to take it farther than that, because then it goes on to getting more taste, attraction to Krishna, bhava, prema, and very high. But it's completely real. So here Krishna is saying, he's warning that without that faith, because we can't see directly, but we need the faith in this Dharma, then one cannot achieve me. And one returns to this world of birth and death, mrityu samsara vartmani. And then who knows what will happen. You know, we can lose the human form of life and go down. So it's an urgent thing to develop that faith. And the way to do it, as Prabhupada says, in the association of devotees. It's just like Sangha is really an essential thing. If you associate with people who are total materialists, who are drunkards and women hunters, you'll become like them. You know, that's why parents, if they're good parents, they're always watching who are their kids hanging out with. Now it says, well, what site are they visiting? Now it's very hard, to monitor. The kid's got his own phone. He can press any button he wants, It's a dangerous situation. But if you're wise, then you decide who you want to associate with, what you want to associate with, because it's just like a disease. It's like a contamination. You don't want to, hang out in dirty places. You might get a disease. When the pandemic is, I'm not going to this restaurant where it's all enclosed. I want to stay outside. So you watch out for your association. And then the Prabhupada quotes this wonderful verse here about yatataro mula nishechanena, that watering the root of the tree. I mean, this is a universal experience. Anyone who knows anything is that if you want a tree to flourish or any plant to flourish, then you pour water on the root regularly. Right? You don't try to water the fruits and flowers separately. That's silly. So Krishna is the root of everything. What this verse is saying is you don't need to worship any demigods, for this or that. And no, if you just worship Krishna, which is a Achyuteja, who you worship Achyuta as a name for Krishna, he who never falls under the control of Maya, then all of the demigods, Sarvarhanam, that's equivalent to worshiping all of them. You don't have to worry. He gives not only the several examples here. If you worship the root of the tree, then all of the branches and flowers get worshipped. If you water the root, then all they get watered. If you feed food to the stomach, then all of the senses become nourished. Similarly, if you worship Krishna and serve Krishna, then all of the demigods are satisfied. And you get rain at the right amounts at the right time in the right place, and all the other things that the demigods can give us. And we actually depend on them for everything. Even the blinking of the eyes, there's a demigod. So that faith, okay, I'm just going to serve Krishna and everything will be taken care of. And so Prabhupada gives you a practical experience and he gives a different class of devotees. What is the Ishvare tadarineshu balisheshu dushachata prema maitri kripopeksha yakaroti samadhyama. The madhyama bhakti. You have the kanishta, who's the lowest bhakti, who doesn't have so much faith in the devotees and everything, but is generally engaged in deity worship, and that he has faith in that, but not so much in other aspects of bhakti which are harder to see immediately. But the madhyama adhikari, who has a certain amount of faith, not the greatest amount, which is the uttama adhikari, then this is the main characteristic. He deals with 4 different categories of people, in different ways. For the Ishvara, so the Supreme Lord, he cultivates prema, love, and devotion. And for those who are related to the Lord, he cultivates friendship. He or she cultivates friendship. For those who are innocent, he has compassion and tries to give them some instruction. And those who are inimical, who are out and out atheists, he avoids. So for the Lord, reverence and prayer and surrender and worship. And for the devotees, friendship and sangha. For those who are unfortunate, the vast majority of people, we go out with books, we go out with the kirtan, we invite, ratha yatras and things. And for the inimical, you don't avoid them. So that's the symptom of the Madhyama Adhikari, who Srila Prabhupada encouraged us to try to come to that platform. And also, it can be categorized according to faith. When one has absolute faith in Krishna, the great devotees like Narada Muni, Prahlad, then there's no question they're willing to, like Prahlad Maharaj I was speaking about this morning, is an amazing story. He's a little delicate boy, but he's a pure devotee and he has full faith in the protection of Krishna. And so he challenges his father he says, no, you should give up this demonic mentality and surrender to Krishna, which is like, like throwing a gasoline on a fire or something. So his father eventually gets so angry with him, he tries to kill him. But because Prahlad really is surrendered and completely dependent on the Lord, he can't be killed. So he had this complete faith. So that's the importance of association and to develop this faith. It really is like a seed. The seed of faith is planted, especially in association with the spiritual master. It's like a part of the Bhakti Lata Bija, the Bija of the creeper of devotion. All right, so we're going to go on. If there's any questions, we can entertain them. Importance of faith in practicing this Raja Vidya, king of knowledge. Mayatatamidam sarvam. Text 4? No? Mayatatamidam sarvam. Jagadavyaktamurtina. Matstani sarvabhutani. Nachaham te shavastitaha. By me and my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not perceivable through the gross material senses. It is said, Atakshi Krishna nabadi nababed grayam indriyayi sevan mukehi jivadao swayameva sporatyadaha. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.234. Lord Shri Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, etc. cannot be understood by material senses. Only to one who is engaged in pure devotional service under proper guidance is he revealed. In the Brahma Samhita 538 it is stated, Premanjanatulita bhakti vilochanena sandak sadaiva hridayesha vilokayanti. One can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, always within himself and outside himself if one has developed the transcendental loving attitude towards him. Thus, for people in general, he is not visible. Here it is said that although he is all-pervading, everywhere present, he is not conceivable by the material senses. This is indicated here by the word avyaktamurtina. But actually, although we cannot see him, everything is resting in him. As we have discussed in the 7th chapter, the entire material cosmic manifestation is only a combination of his two different energies, the superior spiritual energy and the inferior material energy. Just as the sunshine is spread all over the universe, the energy of the Lord is spread all over the creation, and everything is resting in that energy. Yet one should not conclude that because he is spread all over, he has lost his personal existence. To refute such an argument, the Lord says, I am everywhere and everything is in me, but still I am aloof. For example, a king heads a government which is but the manifestation of the king's energy. The different governmental departments are nothing but the energies of the king, and each department is resting on the king's power. But still one cannot expect the king to be present in every department personally. That is a crude example. Similarly, all the manifestations that we see and everything that exists, both in this material world and in the spiritual world, are resting on the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The creation takes place by the diffusion of his different energies, and as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vishtabhyaham idam Kṛṣṇam. He is everywhere present by his personal representation, the diffusion of his different energies. So this idea that Krishna is present everywhere, he's within our hearts as the super soul, and he's also within every atom as a super soul, sustaining everything. Brahma creates, Vishnu sustains, and Shiva destroys. So the hardest part of any enterprise is sustaining it. It's fairly, it's a lot of effort to create it, but then that's over. It's created, but then it has to be sustained. And then to destroy it, that's the easiest one. Anyone can destroy anything. But to sustain it, so Vishnu is sustaining. So he's expanded through his energies. We learned in the 7th chapter, right? The earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. This is the lower energies. Then there's us, which are the spiritual energy. We're called marginal, because we're very infinitesimal, but we're eternal, and we're part of Krishna's internal energy. Eternal and internal. So we're the higher energy, which are actually sustaining the universe. This, our bodies are like little universes. Prabhupada said it like that. And once we leave, it's not sustained. It evolves into its, it has to be burned, buried, like that. So Krishna is present everywhere. Mayatitamidam. Tatam means pervading everywhere. By my invisible form. So we can't see the super soul, right? And we can see the energies, but in our ignorant state, we don't realize whose energies they are. We just think they just are. This is just nature. But no, it's not. It's whose nature is it? Prakriti and Purusha, the Supreme Purusha, Purushottama. All of this is his different energies, and he has whole spiritual world with spiritual energy. But we can't see this. Sri Krishna Namadi means Krishna's name, etc. His pastimes, forms, qualities, his energies. Nabhave grayam indriya. We cannot grasp them or perceive them with our present contaminated senses. But if we begin devotional service, seva unmukhe, beginning with the tongue, which is very interesting. The tongue? Yeah, the tongue. What does the tongue do? You chant and speak and you taste. You taste prasadam, you chant Hare Krishna. And of course the next, one of the ear goes together, the hearing and chanting. Then swayam evas prachada, then these reveal themselves. Krishna reveals himself. That's the only way to understand him. Otherwise he reserves to be invisible behind the curtain of Maya. We can't perceive him. And we say, you guys are nuts. I don't see any of what you're talking about, We've had devotees who've been in the movement for years who eventually become to doubt the whole thing because they commit some offense, they stop chanting, they can't associate, and then they get under the spell again of Maya. And under the spell of Maya, all of this looks like illusion. But we know that that's the real illusion, right? We have faith. And the result is, by surrendering to that illusion, you suffer like anything. But by accepting this reality, you don't suffer. You're able to even at the point of death, I'd like to point this out because in years gone by, when we had a higher concentration of devotees who were living in the area, and many have moved away. But people would pass away, and they would ask me to chant, at their demise, because this is the best way to go. To be surrounded by devotees chanting Hare Krishna. You're listening. They're giving you, the Tulsi. Anyway, there's a very auspicious way to depart. The whole thing depends, as we read in the last chapter, text 5. Antakale tamameva smadan mukta kalevadam. One who remembers me, Krishna says, at the time of death, certainly comes to me, there's no doubt. So how are you going to do that? Well, you have to cultivate remembering Krishna throughout your life, so that at the time of death, where everything is so disturbed, you're still able to remember Krishna. So the most fortunate thing is if you're surrounded by people reminding you of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. So I've been doing that, over the years. And it's remarkable because I happened to have the experience of working in a hospital back in the early 70s. I was an inhalation therapist, so we take around the oxygen and like that. So I saw a lot of people die, and mostly they're drugged up, so then they're not conscious because it's a very difficult experience. But it wasn't like the devotees dying, because devotees, they don't want to be drugged up. We want to be conscious, even though there may be so much pain, because you have a chance to actually remember Krishna and go back to guided. So we've had, in the last couple of years, we had several devotees depart, and some were very, very peaceful, very peaceful. It wasn't not at all like the panic and the fear, because they know that they're eternal. They know that it's just, they're going through death, they're not dying and ceasing to exist. That's the thing. That's the thing that's so terrifying, is that, I don't know what's to come, and my whole life is ending, everything that in other words, you're losing everything. But for devotees, they're losing a body that they can no longer use in Krishna's service. That's all. But their future is very bright. I even told my mother, I like to tell this story. My mother lived to be 96. Pretty amazing. And these days. And she had been very favorable over the years. She subscribed to the magazine. I was writing for the magazine, and she subscribed over the years to that. And when I visited her, she always wanted to feed me, even though I'm like 60 years old or whatever I was, and she's like 80, 90. She said, "You eating okay?" So I said, "You can make me some potatoes. I'll offer the potatoes." But then at the end, it finally came, and she was in the hospice situation. And I told her, "Haribopu," I said, "Well, Mom, it's time for japa." She'd never practiced or anything, but at that point she was ready to do whatever I asked. It was just me and my brothers and my brother had visiting somewhere, so I came. So we started chanting. She didn't get, the whole mantra was too much, so we would just do 2 words at a time. Hare Krishna, and she would say Hare Krishna. She could perfect pronunciation. It was really remarkable. We went on for about 15 minutes, and then a week later she departed. So this is very auspicious because from that one chanting, she eradicates so much sinful reaction. So she because of me, she had a connection, and so it was fortunate. But that's the best way to go is surrounded by devotees chanting, and you're Krishna conscious. And that's the blessing of this. So Atak Shri Krishna Namadi. And he's not visible for people in general, but if we become purified, eventually, Sevanmukhi Jivaro Swayameva Spuratyada, that he reveals himself progressively according to our purity and our sincerity. There's a very nice verse. What chapter is it? I think it's in the 7th chapter. No. Anyway, Ye yatamam papadyante tang tataiva bhajamyaham. It's a very well-known line. As they surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. In other words, Krishna is reciprocating exactly as we're approaching him. If we're really sincere and praying and with faith and serving, then he'll reciprocate. We'll feel his presence. I remember this story. An old friend, Dharma Das, in Miami. He's been there since 69, 70. He hasn't changed. He's been there 50 years. And he was a pujari. He was the president for a while. So he told this story that he would part of his duties, regular duties, were making the next morning's milk sweets in the evening. They would make them like the sandesh and everything, and then they would offer them the next day. So there was a whole crew, it was do that. And Burfi and Sandesh, we had something called Para, which we've never seen here. So one day, the others somehow were on Sankirtan, or they couldn't do it, so he had to make all the sweets. So practically he had to cook all night, And so naturally the next morning he was wanting to take those sweets on the altar, so he was, he was able to do that. So he's going and he's offering the deities in Miami. I spent 6 years there in the temple, working on the Bhagavatam. So he says, he's offering the sweets, he looks at the deities and he's startled because their usual smile was so much broader, He was seeing that they were revealing to him how much pleased they were with him. And this happens sometimes. I mean, there's various miracles, even in ISKCON, that we can tell you, of the devotees having dreams. Rabindranath Sarup tells this one. They had the main deities in Philadelphia. This is in the 70s and 80s. He was the president. And the main deities were Jagannath deities in the main altar. They were big, And so, when he had a dream one night and he woke up, and because one of the deities, I think it was Baladev or Jagannath, was telling me it was cold. He's cold. I'm cold on the altar. So, my God, what's going on? So he took a bath real quick and went down there. And someone had left the door open or something, and it was like a draft on the altar because it gets cold up in Philadelphia, But it came in a dream. And in Mayapur, oh my God, so many instances. They got a temple donated at one point, a Jagannath temple near the main Mayapur temple. 3 deities. But how was it? So Jayapataka Maharaj was a little bit leery that they were going to. How was it that they would? They were giving the temple, but really what they wanted to do was just have have us go and cook for the deities there. And they would still occupy the building or something. There was some intermediate thing. So he said, no, we're not going to go to cook, until we get the deed or something like that. So it turns out that the other people thought the building was already donated. They left, And the deities were on the altar, they weren't getting cooked for, you know. So 3 or 4 pujaris had the same dream, that these deities were walking across the field to come to our temple so that they could get some prasadam, because no one was cooking for them. They all had the same dream. Pankajangri and Jananivas, you know, and some others. And so they said, well, what's going on? And so they found out, oh, this temple really has been donated. We have to start cooking for it and everything like that. So that's just one, you know, miracle. So the deities are real. They're actually there and will reciprocate, you know, with you, you know, when you surrender. So that's Swayam eva spuratyada. This phrase, the Lord reveals Himself to us as we become purified from service, beginning with the tongue, chanting the holy name and tasting prasad. That's where that's at. Okay. So we're almost at the end point. So I think I'll give you a couple of little poems. Are you ready for a poem? Little poem? Yes. You're going to learn these by heart someday. So this is a poem. I'll see if I can do 3 verses in a couple of minutes. They're meditating on Krishna entering the forest with Balaram and the boys and the coward boys, and then running along the Yamuna. Have you ever seen that painting? They're Balaram and Krishna running along the Yamuna, and the boys and the cows are behind them, you know, let's go. And then they're swinging. Have you seen the swinging? Yeah, she knows the paintings. So the first is he's entering. With lovely peacock plume upon his head, and fragrant flower placed upon each ear, he enters Braja's woods with graceful tread, a handsome dancing actor without peer. His golden yellow raiment brightly glows, his splendid garland reaches to his knees, and from his luscious lips the nectar flows, and fills his flute with charming melodies. As Krishna thus begins his blissful day, with cowherd friends who sing his glory sweet, he beautifies Vrindavan's forest way, with fine impressions of his lotus feet. So then they've left the village and they're free, you know, now they can really get going, you know. And so Krishna and Balaram start running along the Yamuna with all the cows and the boys behind them. And this is the scene, you know. Let's go, said Krishna, don't delay at all. And he and Balaram began to run ahead of all their coward friends who called, oh Krishna, Rama, let us join the fun. And off, now this word you're not going to know, haunts. There's a haunt means a secret place where you can play. And off they ran to Braja's forest haunts to play in every bower, grove, and sward. A sward is a meadow. The boys would tease their friend with playful taunts, forgetting his position as the Lord. Shri Krishna is inviting us as well to join him in his pastimes which enthrall. The wise heed Krishna when they hear him tell, let's go, my friends, do not delay at all. Now they're out in the forest, and Krishna is riding on a swing, and 2 boys are pulling, you know. So, for Krishna and his multitude of friends, a festival of joy each day would bring. A special thrill in Braja's forest glens was riding with him high upon a swing. O Ujjvala, Sridharma, Bhadrasena, just see Vrindavan's bountiful delights, the peacock's dance, the songbird's sweet refrain, the lakes and hills and other scenic sights. All these make this the best place on the earth for us to play all day and herd the cows. Thus Krishna, in a mood of sportive mirth, enthused his friends while swinging from the boughs. And there you have a few poems. And now we'll adjourn for the kirtan, which will come in a few minutes. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. And then tomorrow.